Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Ian Patrick. Tonight I'm reviewing another romance film. It came out in 1935. Tonight's film is Magnificent Obsession, and it stars Robert Taylor and Irene Dunne. Now, this is a Universal picture, and it's not super well known, but it is well known for being the film that sort of launched Robert Taylor's career. It was very early in his career, and he was actually an MGM actor, and MGM loaned him over to Universal to make this film. And this would actually be one of the last films that Robert Taylor would do for another studio for decades. He would just stick with MGM for the longest time. So in this film, Robert Taylor, he plays Robert Merrick. And Robert Merrick is sort of a playboy. And Irene Dunne, she is a widow. Her husband recently passed away. Now, the way that their stories come into place. So Robert Taylor, his name is Robert Merrick. He was on a yacht, his yacht. He's a playboy. He fell overboard. He was drunk. So Irene Dunne's husband, who is his name is Dr. Hudson. He's very famous, and he's just a great guy, always helping people. I believe he tried to help Robert Taylor. He ended up drowning, and there's only one machine in the hospital where Irene Dunne's husband works. There's only one respirator machine that can help either Robert Taylor or Irene Dunne's husband. And since Robert Taylor is this very rich, wealthy person, they put the machine on him. He ends up living, and and Irene Dunne's husband, Dr. Hudson, passes away. So right away, Irene Dunne is seen saying, "I will never forgive this Robert Merrick, whoever he is." So Robert Taylor, he's still this playboy, not very carefree. He stumbles upon Irene Dunne. Her name is Helen in the movie. He sees Helen. She has a flat tire, and of course instantly he falls in love with Irene Dunne. But Irene Dunne, she doesn't want anything to do with him, but he just doesn't stop going after her. And then it's learned that he learns that he killed Irene Dunne's husband, that she is the widow of Dr. Hudson. And then he realizes, oh, okay, so pretty much the majority of the first half of the film, or really the entire film, is he's trying to get forgiveness from Helen, but he's also trying to gain her love. But first, of course, after killing her husband, you got to get forgiveness first. So, will she ever forgive him? That's kind of the big question throughout the whole film. There's a very interesting part where Merrick, he comes across an old friend of Dr. Hudson, and he tells him of Dr. Hudson's philosophy that if you really help a person and you don't tell that person that you're helping them, they have no idea that you're the one helping them, giving assistance to whatever in their life, then good things will happen to you. That things that you desire in your life will be blessed upon you by God. So Merrick adopts this philosophy for himself. He believes, okay, well, maybe if I, help Helen, maybe she'll fall in love with me, maybe she'll forgive me. So he starts doing this, but bad things happen again. He's driving her home. She gets out of the car, and a car comes by, and I shouldn't be laughing, but the scene was kind of interesting. But this truck hits the car door, and it just bams right into Irene Dunne's head, and the result of it is that Irene Dunne goes blind, and it's very tragic. It's very sad. And of course, Merrick, he feels just like it's his fault, of course, and he feels terrible. He's trying to get her forgiveness again. In fact, there's a very powerful scene where Helen, she's in the park and she's learning to read books for the blind. And I can't imagine going blind. I don't think any of us who can see can imagine what that's like to lose your sight. But it's powerful. She's with a little girl. She's helping her how to read a classic book like Peter Rabbit. I don't remember which book, and Robert Taylor's just on a bench a ways away, just watching, and watching his love. It's very powerful, and he ends up befriending her. She doesn't recognize his voice, which is funny, but she doesn't recognize his voice, and he says that he's going to help her, or he doesn't tell her that he's going to help her, but in the background, he's helping her. He's getting the best eye doctors for her. She ends up going to Paris to see these doctors to see if they can figure out how to get her eyesight back. So Robert Taylor, of course, he goes to Paris, and bad news, there's nothing that they can do for her. And it's such a lovely and sweet scene when Robert Taylor, he says, "Helen, I'll be your eyes. I'll show you Paris." And before that, even Helen, when she learns that the doctors can't do anything for her, she's just in misery. And it's very powerful acting by Irene Dunne. She breaks down and she's depressed. She's by herself. She's bumping into things, and it's like she's so depressed and unhappy. And then Robert Taylor comes and you just see her light up, and they have very good chemistry in this film. Robert Taylor really did good with Irene Dunne. So he shows her Paris, and he eventually tells her that he is Robert Merrick, and she kind of says, "Oh, I thought so. I thought maybe it was you." But I don't want to give the entire film away. I've already given most of the plot and story away, but I'm not going to give away the ending. I want you all to see this film. I'm going to give this film 3.5 stars. It's such a sweet film. Lovely. I'm not going to give it a full 4 stars because it wasn't super powerful, and it didn't really bring tears to my eyes. It was sweet though, but it was almost a 4 stars in my book. You might find it to be 4 stars or maybe even less, but that's just how I saw the film. So I'm just going to read a few things from my Robert Taylor book about the film. So Irene Dunne remembers saying this before the film was filmed. "I remember sitting with John Stahl, who was the director, who was to be our director, looking at some film of Robert Taylor. Neither of us knew much about him. I did know John, however, and he was the kind of director who, if he were in heaven, would tell God where to sit and then complain about the lighting. But I like to remember that I told John I thought Taylor would be entirely right for the part of Robert Merrick." Then we go on to something that Robert Taylor said to a news reporter when asked about the driving force behind his performance in the movie. And Robert Taylor said this very wittily. "A screen metamorphosis is more psychology than histrionics. The thing is to analyze the character you are playing, and then the various stages of self-development become a logical outgrowth of that individual finding himself." The reporter looked at Taylor. "Would you mind repeating that?" "Yeah, you see, a screen..." "Never mind, Bob. I was never good at spelling." And then L.B. Merrick called Taylor and he said, "Did you actually say that, son?" "Yes, I did, sir. Anything wrong?" "Yes, you sounded like your jockstrap was on too tight. For the time being, you keep your mouth shut." So Taylor just was kind of strange in his reply. So Magnificent Obsession was thrilling thousands of women back in 1936, and I think this is so beautiful. Even the blind were writing him letters. For example, one person said, blind person said this, I go to the movies, mostly musicals, of course, but I can appreciate Robert Taylor even though I cannot see him. His voice is musical and deep. He has a symphonic voice. So that's pretty lovely. And here I just have a picture from the film. You can see Irene Dunne and Robert Taylor. So I definitely recommend seeing it. It was a very successful film. Like I said, it launched Robert Taylor's career. So that's going to do it for tonight, guys. Go see the film. We'll see what I watch next, but have a good one.